The fire is already lit. Sit down, breathe, and listen. Carl Jung once wrote, "You don't attract what you want, but what you are." And that night, sitting before the fire, that was exactly what the silence seemed to repeat. Maybe you've already noticed how certain coincidences never seem truly casual. Like that song that plays at the exact moment someone comes to mind. Or how sometimes we find exactly the answer we were looking for in the most unlikely place. Jung called this synchronicity. But it wasn't just a pretty name for coincidence. It was something much more disturbing. In this video, you'll discover why our life might not be a series of accidents, but a constant dialogue between the unconscious and the cosmos, and why recognizing this can both liberate and terrify. Because the truth about synchronicity is not what one imagines. And once someone sees, they can no longer pretend they don't know.
At 3 years old, Jung already knew something was wrong with the adult world. They explained everything, had answers for every question, but their explanations never really explained anything. That's when he started having visions. Yellow waves of death would sweep across Europe. Blood would run through the streets. And 2 weeks later, these images would return, even more violently. This happened shortly before World War I broke out. Jung was certain he was going insane, until the war began exactly as he had seen. It was there that he understood rationality has limits, and at those limits, something deeper whispers. Maybe many have felt something like this, that moment when logic simply fails, when someone knows something will happen before it happens, when you dream of a person and that person calls the next day, when life delivers exactly what wasn't asked for, but that somehow was necessary. The difference is that Jung didn't pretend these things didn't happen. He dove deeper and discovered he wasn't alone in this experience. He discovered there's a layer of reality where thought and matter dance together. A layer where we're not separated from the world, but deeply connected to it. The collective unconscious, he called it. The place where all minds meet.
Jung discovered something devastating. We rarely attract what we want. We attract what we are. And what we are includes everything we reject in ourselves. Our shadow. That's why someone with terror of abandonment might find people who leave. Someone seeking loyalty might encounter betrayal, especially when there's a deep fear of being betrayed. Synchronicities don't lie. They are the relentless mirror of the unconscious. Jung had a patient who lived in fear of relationships. She dreamed every night of a golden scarab, symbol of transformation and rebirth. During a session, while she was relating the dream, something knocked on the window. Jung opened the window, and a golden beetle flew into the room. That woman was never the same, because she understood something brutal. She wasn't just a victim of circumstances. She was co-author of them. Her fear of love was exactly what prevented it from arriving. Her resistance to transformation was what kept her trapped in the same cycle. The beetle didn't appear by chance. It appeared because something in her was ready to die, so something new could be born. But accepting this means accepting a devastating responsibility. We're not just observers of life, we are creators of it. Even when we don't realize it, or especially when we don't realize it. Jung called this unus mundus, one world, the idea that mind and matter are not separate, that unconscious thoughts, emotions, and beliefs shape the physical reality around us, not magically, but archetypally. There's an invisible pattern connecting everything, and we are part of this pattern. That's why when someone changes internally, the external world responds. Not because the universe conspires in favor, but because we stop sabotaging unconsciously. We stop emitting the hidden signal that attracts exactly what we say we don't want. Jung observed something curious. The most powerful synchronicities happen when we stop trying to control them, when we give up forcing results, when we accept that there's a greater intelligence operating through us, not for us. He experienced this with the I Ching, the Chinese Book of Changes. For over 30 years, Jung consulted this oracle not as superstition, but as a way to access the collective unconscious. And it worked. Not because the book predicted the future, but because it reflected the internal state of whoever consulted it. When we stop fighting against the current, we discover that the current takes us exactly where we need to be.
Here's what Jung discovered and what can change how we see life. There are 4 types of synchronicity, and each has a specific purpose. Warning synchronicities, when something alerts us to necessary changes before it's too late. Confirmation synchronicities, when the universe validates that we're on the right path, even when everyone says we're wrong. Prophetic synchronicities, when we receive information about something that will still happen, preparing us for what's coming. Opportunity synchronicities, when preparation meets chance at the perfect moment, as long as we're paying attention. But here's the problem. Most ignore all of them.
What if recognizing synchronicities is something many purposefully avoid? Because accepting that we're connected to the cosmos means accepting something terrifying. We can no longer pretend to be just victims. We can no longer blame only others for what we attract. We can no longer hide behind the excuse that life is unfair or things just happen. Jung discovered this the hard way. When he started perceiving synchronicities, he lost friends, lost credibility, even lost Freud. Because many prefer to believe they're alone and helpless than to accept they're powerful and responsible. Being connected to the universe is a gift, but it's also a curse.
Jung observed something that goes against everything we've been taught about luck. People who experience many synchronicities aren't lucky. They are more conscious. They pay attention to details that others ignore. They trust impulses that others reject. They act when others hesitate. It's not that the universe favors them. It's that they collaborate with the universe instead of fighting against it. They understood the secret. Synchronicity is not something that happens to us, it's something that happens through us. When we align our conscious will with our unconscious wisdom. When we stop trying to control how things should happen and open ourselves to how they want to happen. But how to do this practically? Jung developed a method he called mystical participation, living as if we and the world were one thing. First,
Keep a synchronicity journal. Note every coincidence for 30 days. The patterns can be frighteningly revealing. Second, when facing a difficult decision, pay attention to the signs around us. Don't look for answers, let them come to us. Third, trust the timing. If something doesn't flow, don't force it. If something flows too much, don't distrust it. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor and perfect timing, even when it seems completely wrong.
Jung paid a high price for this discovery. He knew he could no longer live like other people, could no longer pretend that coincidences were casual, could no longer ignore the invisible patterns governing existence. The world is hanging by a thin thread, he said, and that thread is the human psyche. When someone sees synchronicities, they see responsibility. When they see responsibility, they see power. And when they see power, they can no longer just play victim. It's liberating and absolutely terrifying.
Now there's a choice to make. One can pretend that none of this was heard. One can go back to believing that life is a series of disconnected accidents. One can continue feeling separated and helpless. Or one can start paying attention. One can start noticing the patterns. One can start trusting the impulses that come from a wisdom deeper than rational mind. One can start living as if we and the universe were dance partners instead of adversaries. The choice exists, but it's worth remembering, once you see, you can no longer pretend you don't know. Since ancient times, sages from all cultures knew this. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, acting without forcing. The alchemists spoke of as above, so below, the correspondence between inner and outer world. The Sufi mystics danced to get in tune with the cosmic rhythm. Jung just gave a scientific name to something humanity always knew. We're not separated from the cosmos. We are conscious expressions of it. Dostoevsky wrote that the mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something for which to live. Maybe that something is precisely this, discovering that we're not alone in this universe, that there's a loving intelligence, though sometimes brutal, operating through every moment of existence, even the moments that seem chaotic, especially the moments that seem out of control. That night before the fire, Jung understood something definitive. Synchronicities don't happen to make life easier. They happen to make life more real, to wake up from the illusion that we're isolated fragments floating in a dead universe, to remember that we are the universe experiencing itself through a human perspective. I was always looking for something that would connect this remote past with the present moment, he said, and I discovered, to my surprise, that it was alchemy, the alchemy of consciousness, the transmutation of the lead of unconsciousness into the gold of awakened perception. That night, I understood everything. And since then, whenever the world weighs heavy, I return to the fire. See you soon.